Om Apyayantu Mamangani Vakpranaschakshushrotramatho Balamindriyani Cha Sarvani Sarvam Brahma Upanishadam Maham Brahma Nirakuryam Ma Brahma Nirakarot Anirakaranamastva Nirakaranam Me Astu तदात्मनि निरतेय उपनिषत्सु धर्माः ते मयि सन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. In this last chapter of Chāndogya Upanishad, namely the 8th chapter, we have said already there are 62 mantras spread over 15 khandas or sections. And we have already seen 2 sections. And in these 2 sections, we had a quick look at once more the benefits of karma, upasana, and the highest jnana. All the scriptures, all the shastras talk about these 3 levels. Through karma, one can go to certain heights. Add upasana, one goes to even greater heights. But it is only in the jnana of the non-dual reality that one gets liberated. Thus, in the second khanda, a number of lokas were mentioned: Pitraloka, Bhratraloka, Matraloka, and Gandhamalya Loka, and so on and so forth. All these are possible to attain by a combination of karma and upasana. But now, this session, the 46th class in this series on the Chāndogya Upanishad, we take a look at the highest accomplishment, which is not the accomplishment in the usual sense. Normally in the world, when somebody is accomplished, one becomes greater than others. In true spirituality, the highest accomplishment is one loses all sense of high or low, but it is indeed the highest accomplishment in a new language. So we see in this Tritiya Khanda, for ease of communication, we have actually taken not even 2 full mantras, not even 1 full mantra. We have taken just half of the second mantra of this third section. But I will quickly give you an idea of what is said in this whole section before we enter the second mantra, where our title slide and just one more slide will talk about a very interesting teaching. We take a look at the first mantra. Ta ime satya kama amritapidhana tesham satyanam satam amritamapidhanam yo yo hi asya ita praiti natamiha darshanaya lavate. On one hand, in the previous khanda, fulfillment of desires was praised. Though in all of them, there could be 2 possibilities. There are some who wanted those and got them and felt good about getting whatever they got. Then another possibility is someone is enlightened, and many of these come to that person on their own. So, being in a high position, going to Swarga or attaining some loka is not totally contrary to Atmajnana. When someone has the highest realization, these Positions or some glory, some fame, some name don't mean much to that particular person who in a way is no more a person. She or he has become one with Brahman. So the first mantra says, just one word is enough for us to take a look at. Andrita apidhana te kama. All these accomplishments, attaining lots of enjoyments and so on, are those that have falsehood as a cover over them. There is a cover, Andrita apidhana. It is covered, or there is falsehood in them. Therefore, one must get vairagya. That is how in Adi Shankara's commentary, Shankara makes a very interesting expression right in the beginning. Let me read it for you right away without postponing or without trying to look at it later. Even as he introduces this particular khanda, that is third khanda, right away he makes just a few words. Atmadhyana sadhana anushtanam prati, Atmadhyana sadhana anushtanam prati, sadhakanam utsaha jananartham anukroshanti aha. Shruti, as though lamenting, as though crying, as though expressing grief over lot of intelligent people remaining stuck with karma and upasana, Shruti, the divine Vedas, want all of us to rise higher and do what? Atmadhyana sadhana anushtanam. We must rise to meditate over Atma, the Advaya Atma. Atmadhyana sadhana anushtanam prati sadhakanam utsaha jananartham. Therefore, coming back over here, calling all other accomplishments, however glorious they may look, however bombastic they may appear, calling all of them as having andrita, falsehood in them, is to generate in us an advanced understanding of number one, their limitations, number two, the unlimited nature of Brahma Vidya. Then comes the second mantra. There also we have taken the second half of the second mantra. So let me read for you the first half. Atha yecha asyeha jivaha yecha pretaha yachanyadichan na labate sarvam tadatra gatva vindate atra hi asya ete satya kama anritapidhanaha. So there is of course a category where they rise to the highest wisdom. And please don't imagine that theirs is a boring, monotonous life. The highest wisdom includes all these enjoyments which may have falsehood in them. But if one has gained Brahma Vidya, one is above the enjoyments. So these are little bit of warming up before we come to the main teaching we have picked up from this khanda. I will also throw some light on the third, fourth, and fifth mantras before this session comes to a close. In this second mantra, we'll now go to the title slide. There is a very impressive, very appealing illustration. The appealing illustration is of somebody who is going through a lot of financial hardships and restless he is unable to sit at home. He just walks out, walks behind to his own backyard, and sometimes bringing his hands together in the front, sometimes holding his hands meeting each other behind. He is pacing a certain piece of land in the backyard, wondering how may I clear my debts? How will I have enough money to do this, to do that? You see, the worldly life is full of difficulties. Even the very rich people have their own financial anxieties on a different level altogether. Like in Delhi, once I met a very handsome, very brilliant, and very smart young man. He had just married also, and everything seemed glorious. But then privately he said to me, the young man, that some friends of his had deceived him to the tune of couple of crores of rupees. And he was very angry, not only about the large sum of money, but also the fact that those guys whom he thought were most trustworthy had practically backstabbed him, and they had generated a lot of other problems also. Some of those close friends had created some misunderstanding between him and his father, him and his wife, him and his brother, because they came close to the family and then a lot of things happened. So from a distance, if you find somebody coming in Mercedes, living in a very posh house in a posh area of the national capital and such things, you will think, these guys have no problems whatsoever. But really speaking, they have their own problems, including financial problems. So this man in this illustration is walking up and down the backyard, and the Upanishad gives this illustration of a scenario where right beneath his feet in the earth, inside the soil beneath his feet, there are lots of gold and silver and pearls and rubies and all precious stones. Nidhi. So we have this title slide saying, look, what is illustrated is a spiritual topic. You have it and yet you do not. You have it, then why do you say you do not have it? Because if you don't know that you have it, it's as good as not having it. So the mantra, the second half, and in the title slide, there also we have taken culled just a few words. Ima sarvaha praja. Mind you, you and I are included. All of us. Aharahar gacchantya. Prajaha is feminine grammatically. Therefore, gacchantyaha. Nadi nadyau nadyaha. Gacchanti gachantyau gachantyaha. All these creatures, every day, to be specific, every night during their sleeping hours, in their deep sleep, they are one with Brahma-loka. Acharya Shankara doesn't mince words. In his commentary says, Brahma eva lokaha Brahma-loka. Don't imagine some realm where Chaturmukha Brahma is sitting on a high chair and all of us are happily around him. No, Brahma, what was called in the earlier chapter, Bhuma, is Brahma. The absolute reality itself is in a figurative language called Loka. So it's not literal. What does it mean? In deep sleep, everyone is with pure Brahma. The sixth chapter had said it and we had seen it. Sata sampannaha bhavati was said. That was the language. That is, one is fully 100% with Sat. No ignorance, no avidya, no vasanas, no causal body, no nothing. You are Brahma in deep sleep. Now, every time the question arises, people will say, well, if you are Brahma in deep sleep, what makes you come back? The issue is you have to give a little careful thought to it. This idea, I have come back, I went to deep sleep, I went to dream, I, as though on an unquestionable axis of time, went there, came back here, etc., is part of the avidya bhumi. Really, you never went anywhere? You never came back from anywhere? You are Brahma even now. And time, let me not go into too much of explanation, for there is not so much time in this class. Time is part of the erroneous perception, part of that very error, adhyasa, avidya, ajnana, etc., of which the false I also is a part. Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi repeatedly says, the loka and the aham, the ego, rise together and disappear together. Dhiya sahodeti, dhiya astameti is a verse in Saddarshanam. There's a very fascinating theme, and when you look at it this way, that there is no going, there is no coming. You are that pure awareness, and in a certain erroneous perception, there is a sense of, I am primarily this waking self. We become so waking centered, like Europeans and these days Americans think that they are the center of the world. The Vice Chancellor of Aligarh Muslim University criticized BBC a couple of months ago. And as I read his article with much interest, where he really takes BBC to task, England to task, Europe to task, he uses an expression which was new to me, the white man's burden. And he knows the Vice Chancellor of Aligarh Muslim University, while criticizing European outlook towards India and developing countries, knows that a lot of Indians, like Swami Chidananda himself, reading his article, do not know what this means, the white man's burden. So one paragraph he devotes to explain what is white man's burden. As England mainly, and France and Holland and other countries colonized different parts of the world, in Asia, in Africa, Australia, and so on, in the Americas also, they conquered. They were so rooted in their thinking that it is our duty now to lift and uplift and educate and to bring sense to the rest of the world. So they imagine it is their burden, it is their responsibility. Like in some families, the eldest brother thinks that it is his responsibility. And every now and then, some younger brother, some younger sister goes way higher than the elder brother. And the elder brother's ego is hurt. Here and there, the elder brother shouts, after the father, I am the boss. But the younger people would have gone way ahead. They don't listen to him. So this age, this who is older, etc., doesn't have more importance than certain level. So without going far into it, just as even today, Europe and America think that they are the policemen, they are policing the whole world and so on. coming back to what mainly is in the Vedanta, the waking ego thinks that whatever Mandukya Karika and any other say, after everything, waking ego thinks that I am a little more real than dream ego, or I am little less unreal than the dream ego. I am little. You may have heard a joke long ago. An American said, an American and a Russian. Russia was even now communist that time, very strongly communist. American and Russian met, and the American said, I can stand before the White House and criticize United States of America. I have that freedom. The Russian also put his chest up and said equally passionately, I too can stand before Kremlin and criticize the United States. So, apparently, both were equal. Now, the waking ego, it is the waking ego's burden. The white man's burden is a certain psychology where the white man thinks that he is the white man or white woman thinks that everybody should learn what is civilization, what is culture, what is morality, what is values, what is all this from him, from the white people, which is not true. The reality of life is we don't want to condemn the white people. There are many things the whites teach us. There are many things the whites learn from us, the Asians. Likewise, the waking ego and dream ego, the Mandukya Karikas, without mincing words, say it out, are equally false. And the truth is that reality which you are, which doesn't go to dream, which doesn't go to deep sleep. Waking, dream, and deep sleep appear on the adhisthana that you are. So, coming back to the illustration given in the Chāndogya Upanishad, we'll read the actual illustration in the next slide. This is taken from that mantra only, 8.3.2, अहरहर गच्छन्त्यः. So let's see what is meant by this going to Brahma and yet not realizing Brahma. In the second and the last slide now, we see this is the second half of the mantra, which says, it gets into the drishtanta right away. Tad yatha api hiranyanidhim nihitam akshetradna. Like that man who was walking up and down in his backyard, there are people who don't know the kshetra. They don't know the field, meaning that there is gold and silver below the field, below the ground. Upari upari sancharantaha. They are walking only on the surface. Navindeyuhu. Because they don't know that there is no treasure beneath their feet. Do you think the treasure vanishes? There is the treasure. They don't know. And when they don't know, alas, it is as good as they don't have. You have it, and yet you don't, was our title slide. Evameva ima sarva prajaha aharahar. Ahar means day. Therefore, middle of the day is madhya, ahna, madhyana, purvanna, forenoon, aparanna, afternoon, and so on. Ahar, and that word ahar becomes ahan in certain compounds. Aharahar gacchantyaha etam brahmalokam na vindanti anritena hi pratyudha. Because Vedanta is not like many other sciences or many other topics or subjects, here you need proper guidance. please do not bring the principle of cause and effect, which is valid in millions of scenarios. Today I thought I will watch for 1 minute, but I could not stop. I think it was maybe 15 minutes or so. A wonderful video by somebody from India, Vivek Sharma. He's, I guess, a professor in San Diego, maybe in UCSD. He gave a talk at gathering of IITians of San Francisco Bay Area. I just chanced upon it. And we must be proud of him. He headed a team of some 180 scientists from all over the world in that very famous experiment around 2009, 11, etc. That some Hydron collision in CERN, Geneva, European Council for Nuclear Research. In some other language, it becomes CERN. And there is the collision of two subatomic particles, and it is something to do with Higgs boson. On one hand, the scientist Peter Higgs is involved in naming it Higgs boson, and on the other, it's called boson because S.N. Bose of India had contributed to that part of pure physics. So why I'm mentioning it is Vivek Sharma begins with the Rigveda's hymn, Nasadasi, Nosadasi, the famous Nasadiya Sukta. He says in his childhood, he heard the Nasadiya Sukta, he read about Nasadiya Sukta and was so inspired. And later on, heading an international team of scientists, he actually succeeded in that very difficult experiment where I guess the bosons clash and photons are generated, something like that. That is, you can check up what it is. Now, I'm mentioning it everywhere in small and big things in the phenomenal world, there is a cause and there's an effect. So the bosons hit and photons are generated, or whatever else, Something is the cause, something is the effect. I eat some poisonous food and I get stomach pain, cause and effect. But in the matter of appreciating Brahma, you have to take this whole business of cause and effect, lock, stock, and barrel, put it aside. The phenomenal world, everything is on the axis of time. And once time comes, stationary items, moving items, items that gather speed and they have increased velocity, acceleration, so that, the CERN experiment involved, to refresh my memory again, they accelerate certain particles over hundreds of miles physically, and those particles accelerated in time. You may remember a little physics. Length by time is velocity. Length by time is acceleration. So speed also increases. And then there is a collision. Then for very negligible, I don't know, picoseconds or nanoseconds or even less than that, that bosons and the Higgs boson, etc., that was proved. What was theoretically visualized, envisioned, was practically through an experiment proved. Yes, what we thought was right, so on. So, cause, effect, number one. In space, I told you, miles and miles of that accelerator. Particles keep running and gather speed. And then that is space. Distance is space over a length of time. So if you see that famous experiment of Large Hadron Collider or some LHC, CERN. All these three are very much there. Space, time and causation. But in Sushupti, it's not that you don't experience space, you don't experience time, you don't experience causation. These three illusions aren't there. These three are illusions. So, अहरहर गच्छन्त्यः, again prajaha being feminine, गच्छन्त्यः. If it were masculine, sarve janaha, then the Sanskrit would have been अहरहर गच्छन्तः. So, गच्छन्त्यः न विन्दन्ति अन्धतेन हि प्रत्यूढाः. So, one of the most fundamental issues of Advaita Vedanta is to understand what this Andrita, here it is avidya, ajnana, is. Therefore, let's see a couple of comments by no other than Bhagavan Vashyakara, who says this whole mention is to encourage, to generate certain enthusiasm in seekers to let go of enjoyments and achievements that come and go, and to embrace that truth where nothing comes, nothing goes. You are that. So here in this, it is said, first of all, the first part of that mantra, which was not shown in this slide, is all the enjoyments are not really outside as one imagines. Shankara said, Tat sarvam atra hridaya akashakye brahmani gatva yathoktena vidina vindate labate. Right in your heart you may find. And then coming to the crux of the matter, Shankara adds, see the word in deep sleep, sushupta kale, is not in the mantra proper, but Adi Shankara adds. That is what made Swami Satchidanandendra Saraswati take a second look at the meaning of avidya, meaning of the three avasthas and so on. So there is the statement, while the mantra says aharaha gacchantya, Adi Shankara adds sushupta kale. And then yeshaha aham brahma, this I aham, or yeshaha, yes, yeshaha aham brahma, brahmaloka bhavam apannaha asmi adya iti. And Shankara even adds, in deep sleep, avidyadi doshaihi bahihi apakrishta. In deep sleep, you are as though pulled out from all blemishes, all impurities, all imperfections, all undesirables, like avidya. One has to thus free oneself of the age-old conditioning. Therefore, we must not look at realization as happening. It's not something that happens. Therefore, ordinary language fails in doing justice to this matter of realization. A bud blossoms, opens up and becomes a flower. So the flower happens. A child grows, comes to adolescence, then middle age, then old age. It's all phenomenon. Self-realization is not a phenomenon, because time is a part of the erroneous perception. Whereas we have been heavily conditioned to look at time as an unquestionable axis. How do we come back? How do we go? Then how do we get enlightened? And if deep sleep were pure self, then we should get enlightened there. Because we are so conditioned to think of enlightenment as something happening. Like you take a dip in some magical pond and all your sins are washed away. You take a dip in some magical pond and all your tiredness, what tiredness? An old man, 83-year-old with white hair, takes a dip in a pond, magical pond somewhere, like in stories, no? And he wakes up and gets out, comes out of the pond. Ah, my hair have turned black. My wrinkles are gone. I look like a 32-year-old young man. Wow, I am so handsome now, etc. Like that, if you and I imagine that we go to deep sleep, something happens. Sorry, ask a question. Do you go to deep sleep or you are ever the witnessing consciousness? And yes, to the extent of the waker sort of remembering the experience of deep sleep, one may say, I experienced deep sleep. Swami Satchidananda Saraswati goes very deep into it. And one of the things that makes it very difficult for most people to understand SSS, Swami Satchidananda Saraswati, for SSS, what makes it very difficult for anybody to understand is he dismisses the idea that either dream or deep sleep can be a memory. Even teachers like Swami Paramarthanandji and so on, following Swami Dayanandji, stick to the view that mind is in all the three states of experience: sleep, sleep, dream, and waking. And that is how, as we wake up, we remember our dream. We remember the bliss of deep sleep. There is somebody who is in all the three. SSS uncompromisingly says, if there is anyone who is there in all the three, it's not the mind, it's not the senses, it's not the subtle body, it's not the causal body. Only pure self is in all the three. So these lines, Shankara saying, avidyadi doshaihi bahiraprakrishtaha ityarthaha, can support the view of SSS also. So this, there being a great treasure below the earth, and you actually own it. Your father had put all that for you to dig up and take it at a proper time. But before he could tell you clearly, he died. There's a more detailed story that finally this young man goes and consults some elderly person in the village, and that elderly person, who was a friend of the father who had died, says, oh, no, sorry, I forgot to tell you. Your father once told me that he had put a lot of wealth, precious stones under the ground. Below, there is that banyan tree behind, so below that banyan tree, in front, below the branches of it. And then they go, then they dig, then they find there is enough wealth to take care of finances for next 3 generations. So, likewise, the Shruti Vakya, Drishtanta is to say the Shruti Vakya, the statements of the Upanishad, statements of Shankara, and the precious light that teachers like Swami Satchidananda Saraswati, Chinmayanandaji, Dayanandaji, Paramarthanandaji. So there are some differences with respect to certain points, doesn't matter. All of them help us go to great heights and gain a great clarity. Otherwise, we are just enjoying the Sanskrit, enjoying some concepts, and There is no radical change in us. Now, in the remaining three mantras, the third khanda of this eighth chapter indulges in a little bit of secondary topics. Whenever it is said, you are the self, look for your true nature in your own heart, not anywhere else, the word hridaya is used. So, this third mantra in this khanda, which we have not shown in the slides, very nicely says, you know how the word hridaya comes? Hrit ayam. Ayam means this pure self is the heart. The heart itself is the pure self. Hrit ayam becomes hridayam. Or using yan sandhi, hridi in the heart, ayam. Where is this truth to be found? It is to be found in your heart. Hridi, hridaye. Hridi ayam iti hridyayam. And then you remove one or you remove Hradi plus ayam. If you remove Hradi, then hridayam. Otherwise, it's on the end sandhi makes it hridyayam. So that is one indulgence. Scriptures also help us relax a little with a little play of words, with a little fun, with a little poetry, and then bring you back to some serious review of the truth. The fourth mantra, both seriously and with some fun, says, brings the word samprasada. If you go back to chapter 6 of this very Chāndogya Upanishad, you find some mantras talking about samprasada. And samprasada also is what Upanishad itself is using. Sampra plus sada. Shankara again speaks with great force. Sushapta kale svena atmana sata sampannaha san. When you are in deep sleep, or when deep sleep appears upon you, you are the substrate, you see. They are never tired of saying, it's not like when I am in Chennai, when I am in Delhi, when I am in Mumbai, then I go. Mumbai to Chennai to Delhi to Mumbai. But here, when I am in deep sleep, it's not going really. But in a simplified lay language, we say, when you are in deep sleep, Sata Sampanna, you are fully endowed with, you are the pure self. Where does Samprasada come? The word of the mantra. Samyak prasidati. Samyak, very nicely, fully prasidati. Totally relieved. Because the names and forms, time and space, causation, and so many other components of this Nama Rupatmakam Jagat are all not there. Jagrat Swapnayoho Vishayendriya Sanyoga Jatam Kalushyam Jahati. All of you know the word Kalusha. Kalusha means dirt. Kalusha means impurity. Kalushyam Jahati. In deep sleep, you let go of all impurities, all dirt, all fatigue, whatever is undesirable. In waking and dream, since the error domain is active, in a manner of saying, error domain should not be taken as something real coming from somewhere, then that will be a Advaita Hani. There is Brahma and there is Avidya. There is something else. There is nothing else. So you must understand the idea of error very carefully. It's very challenging, but unlike quantum physics or some subatomic physics, this is a different ball game. This doesn't require you to know struggle with advanced mathematics and advanced maybe 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional, 5-dimensional imagination, etc. You need a high degree of logical ability to do, but it's not of that kind, not of that complicated equations and so on. Therefore, in spirituality, you are asked to develop logical thinking, but on an equal footing, you are asked to develop selflessness, chitta nirmalya, purity of mind. So Shankara again says, what is this rising above the body as given in the fourth mantra? He says, well, don't imagine rising above the body as you may do in Karma Kanda. In Karma Kanda, the body is lying dead on the floor and the Sukshma Sharira literally rises from the body, moves. Yesterday, there was a talk in a certain university near Ahmedabad by a teacher there. He is an assistant professor of mechanical engineering, but he gave a talk from Garuda Purana. Interesting. There he explained in detail how the soul travels to other lokas and so on. That is karma kanda. That is still the dualistic realm. Yes, Garuda Purana talks about it. But Vedanta says what Shankara says here. In the Vedanta, depending on the context, where it is said rising above the body, actually nothing rises, nothing falls. You understand you are not the body. Shariratma bhavanam parityajya, and then one realizes one's true nature. Asharirata atmanah swarupam. Another precious statement in Shankara. Lastly, for this class, the fifth and last mantra of this kanda, the Shruti Upanishad indulges in opening up another world, and that is Satyam. As you know, even in the 9 mantras that had a Tattvamasi in chapter 6 in the Chāndogya Upanishad itself, Tat Satyam Sa Atma Tattvamasi Svetaketo, right? Aitadatmimidam Sarvam. So, Satyam came there. The last mantra here says, Satyam is made of Sat, Ti, and Yam. Sat is what is real, Ti is what is unreal, and Yam means to hold both these in control. So it's a little bit of indulgence. After all, as you and I perceive this world, there is a lot of Maya also in this world. And there is a lot of good also in this world. There are bad people, there are good people. There are asuras, there are suras. There are those who kill, there are those who sacrifice their own life for others' well-being. So, Sat is truth. Ti, Ti, Ti is untruth. Yam is to hold together. Therefore, the Supreme Brahma, which is called Satyam, at a lot of places in the scriptures, the Supreme Brahma is called Satyam because Yam, Yachati holds together Sat, Satyam and or Ratam, and Ti is Anratam. Dr. Radhakrishnan in his translation gives a couple of footnotes, and he being an academician and has perhaps studied and taught Shankara, Ramanuja, Madhva and all those philosophies in his university work. Here and there in his book, 16 Major Upanishads, he gives Ramanuja's comment. Some selected lines. He says, according to Ramanuja's elaboration on this mantra, As you know, Sri Ramanujacharya did not write a commentary on the entire Chāndogya Upanishad, but on a lot of such mantras which are very important, he has given his interpretation in one of his works. In a single work, he has drawn important mantras from Isha and Kena, Kata and Mundaka and so many others. So there he says, Sat means Nishkama Karma, Ti means Sakama Karma. So selfless activities, selfish activities. Otherwise, Ramanujacharya is pretty close to Shankaracharya. So Brahma holds all these in a certain sense. But as you rise higher and higher, Sat alone is. Everything else is mere fancy. In this way, with a little interesting light thrown on how words come about, this Khanda concludes. Essentially, what we looked at in this class is like the man walking on the ground in his backyard, you and I are so close. We are the self. Every time we have no dream and no waking experiences, that is like deep sleep. That's it. But the problem is, as we experience waking state, the error domain is operational. To eliminate that error is the job of Vedanta study. There is an erroneous perception. Before the scientists found out that the sun is the center of the solar system, not the earth, you think before that discovery the earth was the center? The earth was never the center. Likewise, you and I were never bound, are not bound, will never be bound, but there is an error. So that error itself is adhyasa. According to SSS, error itself is adhyasa. Whereas according to a lot of other very well-known Swamijis all over India and abroad, avidya is something difficult to explain, and adhyasa arises from avidya. There are two levels. Brahmani avidya vartate, avidyayaha, from that avidya, there takes place an unfortunate mixing up of things, that is adhyasa. They create therefore three levels: Brahma, avidya, adhyasa. Whereas SSS interprets Shankara's commentaries saying Brahma alone is. And at the best, avidya is a word used for not understanding the truth that Brahma alone is. So that error itself is avidya. There is nothing called avidya that exists, that is. Therefore, having raised it, let me say that there is a big debate whether avidya is bhava rupa. It is. Can we say there is avidya, or can we not say? SSS is strongly of the view that you cannot say avidya is. If at all anything is, that is Brahma and Brahma only. Brahma eva asti, na kinchid anyad asti, tasmat avidya asti iti yaha vadati saha na janati. Such things are said. Om Namah Paramarshibhyo, Namah Paramarshibhya.